So hello everyone, just whilst Jenna gets her screen up. I'm Charlie and I've been working with my colleagues Jenna and Neil on a project using social network analysis to help us better understand relationships between victims and offenders in our data. Jenna and I are both analysts within Devon and Cornwall Police and will be taking you through some of the processes and the impacts of our project. Neil is a business intelligence developer, and although Neil isn't presenting, he is here with us and has been invaluable in the technical aspect of our project.
Hi everybody. So what was the problem we were trying to solve? Every year, the police record tens of thousands of crimes, incidents, inquiries, and pieces of intelligence. We also hold data about all of the people involved in this, including offenders, suspects, victims, witnesses, and other linked people. Additionally, the data sits across. So the problem we had was, how do we ensure we're making the best decisions from our data in an evidence-based way? Social network analysis was a tool which offered us the ability to bring together all of the different sources of data to visualize how people are linked within networks. Once you can see how people are linked, you can consider who might be central to a problem, who might be enabling it, and who is on the periphery who might be at risk of being drawn into it. This can then help to identify opportunities to put crime prevention interventions into place or identify who might need safeguarding.
So how did we use social network analysis? We started by creating two data files, one being a node list, which includes people, crimes, inquiries, and incidents, and the other an edge list that contains information about the links between the nodes. So for us, this could be two people who are linked by intelligence or by crime. And then we put both of these files into an open source network analysis tool called Gephi, which automatically finds the links between the different nodes in the network and plots them in a visualization like this one on screen. We can change the color of the nodes, for example, different colors to show different genders or different colors for different areas or neighborhoods. And we can also add labels to the nodes and the edges to show what they represent.
So we wanted to approach this in an evidence-based way by testing to see whether we could replicate a network of key individuals who had already been identified. So in 2020, Teignmouth had an ongoing problem with youths engaging in antisocial behaviour and crime, including violence. An officer who was new to the area had been tasked to find ways to reduce this youth-related problem. He spent about 2 full weeks examining logs, crimes, and intelligence manually and talking to other officers and our partners to narrow it down to the 5 main instigators of the antisocial behaviour. He then had to gather further evidence to apply for a civil injunction, which prevented those 5 individuals from meeting with each other within the town. This separated the group and consequently reduced their issues.
So using Teignmouth as our test ground, we extracted data for crimes and antisocial behaviour committed by young people during the relevant time period and put it into Gephi. In this diagram, the blue nodes are males, the pink nodes are females, and the crimes are shown in other colours such as the red nodes, which are violent offences. The statistical analysis identified 5 people who were most influential within the network, and these are the 5 blue nodes labelled here from 1 to 5. Node 1 is the largest because he was linked to the most serious crimes and the most people. The 5 people here were the same 5 people as the officer had identified, but we were able to produce this result in just a few hours, as opposed to the officer spending several weeks manually connecting information across crime, incident, and intelligence data sources.
So we also tested the approach on another area of South Devon, where they had run a project called Turning Corners, which was focused on reducing antisocial behaviour and criminal behaviour by young people. The analysts from that project provided us with a list of about 9 names that they were actively monitoring and putting interventions in place with, as a result of months of work building up their evidence base to identify who they should be focusing attention on. We took the same data parameters, and in a data set with over 2,000 nodes, all 9 of the relevant individuals appeared within our top 20. This took us just a couple of hours, and the analyst was amazed at how quickly we got to this result. And she said that if they'd had the information at the time, it would be really useful for them to look at the other young people identified within our top 20. So this provided us with our proof of concept.
So to put this into practice in a new area, we approached the Superintendent for Local Policing in Plymouth and gained their support for testing social network analysis in Plymouth over the summer. And the only condition in doing this was that it should support their strategic objective of reducing violence. So we started by conducting a workshop with various officers and police staff to demonstrate social network analysis to them. And we then discussed various ways in which it might be able to assist in identifying networks of people people involved in violence so that they could put in place appropriate interventions and safeguarding. And one of the areas they were particularly interested in was youth antisocial behaviour.
So we extracted 6 months of data for all the crimes and antisocial behaviour committed by young people up to the age of 19 in Plymouth. The diagram you can see here represents that data, with different colours representing different areas of the city. The nodes that are larger are the ones that scored higher on a statistical measure called eigenvector centrality. This looks at not just how many links each node has, but also how important the links are. So nodes score higher if they are linked to other high-scoring nodes. You can see that there was a cluster of high-scoring individuals, mostly in red and green, and these represent an area of Plymouth that the participants of the workshop had raised as a particular area of concern. So we decided it would be useful to look in more detail at this particular group.
So we re-extracted the data focused around the 23 highest scoring individuals so that we could then zoom in more closely to some of the clusters within the network to visualise the connections between them. We then reviewed their crime and intelligence entries so that we could build up a narrative of how they were connected to each other, either by crime or social interaction. And this was presented to a number of stakeholders in Plymouth, including the child-centred policing inspector, a senior intelligence analyst and a specialist problem solver. And although they weren't surprised by the results, they were reassured to know the data supported their understanding and that they were focusing on the right area. And they were also interested in the people who seemed to have close connections to the key players in the network, such as some of the other male nodes you can see in the image. And they also commented on how easy it was to understand the data and see what it meant, which we felt was really good feedback to get when you're presenting something that's technically quite complex. So we then shared the information that we had produced with them so that they could take the key findings to a multi-agency meeting around youth issues in the area that we'd identified. And I think they found it particularly useful knowing more about the young people on the periphery of our network. So that would enable them to start putting safeguarding in place. So we agreed at the meeting more research would be done around those individuals, which should help to prevent these young people from being drawn into antisocial and criminal behaviours and help to reduce violence in the city in the future.
So to reiterate, we think that one of the main impacts of adopting this approach is making far better use of our data and saving people a large amount of time from trawling through information in a manual way. We've also been experimenting with other ways to use network analysis. For example, we have been exploring how we could understand repeat victims and offenders of domestic abuse better through looking at how groups of people are connected by domestic abuse crimes and inquiries. We also built a network around a single high offending youth, which we shared with the officer in Plymouth who had requested it. He says that he used it to show his wider team how extensive the young man's levels of influence were within Plymouth and to look at opportunities to safeguard and divert those associated with him. He also placed it on their briefing system to generate conversations with other work streams about using different methods to understand our most problematic people. We ran out of time for this project, but we'd also like to try building a network around a single hotspot area for violent crime. We recently presented our project work to our Evidence-Based Practice and Innovation Board, and that's generated a lot of enthusiasm for the approach. For example, the Superintendent for South Devon wants to discuss how he could use it in his area. There is also the potential to expand this work beyond just the police to a multi-agency approach. Particularly in relation to the work around young people, we think that schools and children's services could hold a lot of data that could help to enrich the picture. By engaging with our Intelligence Directorate, we have been able to demonstrate the benefits and opportunities that network analysis provides. Our own senior management team are now keen to discuss with them how we could embed the use of network analysis in the longer term, working together to combine a strategic and operational approach.
As with any new project, we faced several challenges around information assurance and our initial setup. So the HSMA course uses a lot of good open source tools, but our force had concerns about downloading these resources onto network computers. So our project originally had two aspects to it. One was the network analysis, which we've been through, and the other used natural language processing. So we wanted to analyse the free text in our domestic abuse crimes to identify relationships between victims and offenders, so that we could differentiate between intimate partner violence and familial violence. So we built a model and ran test data through it, and doing this we achieved about 72% accuracy, and we discussed how we might improve the quality of the data that we were working with so the model was better able to identify relationships. Unfortunately, we couldn't send any larger data files to our standalone laptops, but this has provoked conversation around making best use of softwares that are available to us, and a business case is going to be submitted to evaluate whether there is a solution to enable us to have this software on our network computers. And I think that the work that we've done to date on the HSMA project has demonstrated the considerable benefits that using these tools can have for our organisation, and will be instrumental in making the case for finding solutions that will enable us to use data science techniques to support policing in the future.
Throughout the project, we've been aware that there are potential ethical issues with using intelligence in network analysis. For example, if there had been a particular operation where increased intelligence was submitted about a group of individuals, this could be reflected in our network and create bias. Also, so far, we haven't taken into account the grading of the intelligence, so some of it could be unreliable. We're also conscious that without partner data, our network analysis is currently biased towards police recorded data. But a benefit of this approach is that it presents opportunities to see where we have gaps in our intelligence that we could seek to fill. These considerations around data quality and ethics are something we would look to progress with the relevant departments when taking this work forward in the future. Thank you for listening to our presentation. Does anybody have any questions?